All right, so Mossberg a couple years ago came out with their own bolt action, and this is kind of my thoughts on the design of the bolt itself, because it's a newer design and it has some interesting points about it. Now, I see thousands of bolts. I mean, in fact, that's all I work with. I work with bolts only. I do not work with actions, because if I did, I wouldn't have time to do anything. I wouldn't have a life. And yeah, so as a person who has worked with many thousands of bolts and all sorts of different brands, I have a lot of opinions, and I'll share them with you now. First off, this bolt, it very much feels like a Weatherby and a Savage got together and had an illegitimate child. Okay, because they kind of borrow a lot of elements from each other. The firing pin and shroud assembly are almost exactly like a Weatherby, and then of course it has a floating bolt head just like a Savage does. And the bolt head actually shares a lot of attributes of a Savage, although it's improved on a few things. So one of the first things it has really improved on is this retaining pin, which goes through and basically holds the bolt head onto the body itself. Now, this guy, it's actually quite a bit thicker and beefier than the one that you see in the Savage. And this is actually for good reason, because this part is probably one of the more common things that breaks on at least the older Savages. Now, the newer Savages, they have a skinnier neck on the firing pin, which allowed them to basically put a little bit more metal in their newer ones. And so it hasn't been as much of an issue, but occasionally one does break. And it has kind of given Savages a bad reputation in that respect, because a lot of people remember that happening back in the 70s and 80s, or 80s and 90s. But yeah, so this one here, Mossberg has improved on it in that it is a bigger pin. In addition to that, they actually retained something that Savage got rid of, and there's actually a notch back right here which aligns the bolt head up and gives it yet another point basically to turn the bolt head and another point of contact with the bolt body itself. Now, I think it's a little bit unnecessary. However, one thing that it does do well is that it prevents you, the user, from accidentally putting the bolt head back on the bolt in the wrong orientation, which with the newer Savages is actually something that's pretty easy to do. I've seen lots of users do it, and I've done it myself quite a few times, and like had to walk customers through flipping it around with it, which is really easy. Now, the bolt head itself, okay, now it's kind of roughly machined. It's not that great looking, and I'll tell you this though, truing them up, they're pretty close, okay. Now on the back of the lugs, I have noticed some valleys and irregularities. However, both the lugs, when I trued this guy up, were pretty much already square and good. Now, something else that is kind of, it makes me wonder a little bit is the extractor claw. It's like half of a tooth. You know, it just looks weak to me. However, I've never heard of one breaking, so oh well. You know, and then there's this. There is actually the lugs themselves. They're pretty beefy. They're pretty big. Okay, which is good. Okay, it means a stronger action overall. However, they went and they put a guide groove in one of the lugs, which kind of forced them to move the extractor claw a little ways, and also probably necessitated that half a tooth design that we have. Now here's what my opinion is, okay? Angeline has a perfect tush, okay? And if you were to put a Band-Aid on her right butt cheek, it wouldn't make it any better, okay? That's what this is. This groove right here, it is totally unnecessary. It is just a borrowed design. Probably the designers said, well, everybody else has one in their action, so we should put one in ours. You know, it's not necessary. The lugs themselves, traveling down the raceways of the action, are plenty to guide the bolt. This groove here is not necessary, okay? Points to the designer who thinks they're smart and put that in there. They're not, okay? Now, let's talk about the bolt body, okay? The bolt body, it is cast, okay? It's a cast piece of metal and then machined, at least this line here. And I gotta say, it's pretty good design. It's not too heavy, actually pretty light. The fluting that's in all of them is really shallow. I mean, come on, I think they could have gone a little deeper. But the bolt handle though, because it's all one piece, you know, you'll never have to worry about this breaking on you. I know I've seen, like, for example, on the Bagara bolts, those are laser welded together, and I've had them snap off on me, you know, and that's just me working on them in the shop, not even like manhandling the action. Okay, you know, it's a great looking weld, laser welding, but it's weak. Okay, and these are not welded. It's all one piece, which is nice. Okay. Now, like I said, I do wish the flutes were a little bit deeper, but the flutes do kind of like provide one thing. It gives like dirt a place to go. So kind of like you think like an AK-47. All the parts float. Okay, they got lots of space around them, and because they have all that space around them, it means that if you throw dirt in the action, it's not going to stop running. Okay, same thing with this. Those flutes give dirt a place to go, and so you're not really going to have to worry about this locking you up. Okay. Now, the firing pin, okay? Now, kudos to them. I think the firing pin's a good design. It's not hardened. Thank goodness. I hate working on hardened firing pins. You know, you don't need to harden a firing pin, okay? And here's another thing. The tip of their firing pin is very well shaped. It's a nice dome. It's not a completely rounded ball, which kudos to them for doing a good design on that. And for that reason, I actually hear very few people complain about light strikes with these, and that's because the shape of the tip is right to begin with. All right. Now, taking it apart, pretty simple. It's actually a lot like a Weatherby or Howa, whichever you're familiar with. It's heavy though. I mean, this shroud back here, you know, and this is kind of one of those things like, you know, I know it's only 1 ounce, but you know what? When you're at 12,000 feet and you're chasing an elk, every ounce counts. Every ounce counts. And this is just extra weight back here. This could have been an aluminum part, okay? And Kelby Pandas, their shroud that's on the back of their firing pin, I just worked on one this morning. It's aluminum, okay? Super light. That's never seen one fail. Now, let's put it back together here for you again. Got the retaining pin that goes in here like so. There you go. You just basically push it in, turn it, cocked. There you go. Ready to go. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good design, and hopefully more designers kind of come, maybe modernize their actions a little bit more like this one.